Trump coming to Long Island today, Susan. We are less than 50 days till the election. New York is solidly blue. What do you make of the fact he's coming here, and could it potentially backfire when it comes to those close House races?
Well, actually, I think where he is on Long Island today will be helpful to the congressional candidates out there. But I think also sometimes when you run campaigns, you put your candidate in safe places and you let them kind of feel the love from the audience, which he will feel there. So it's not a big leap for him to do that. He doesn't have to travel much. Maybe he's tired and worn down from everything. He just wanted to, hop over to Long Island, nice and convenient for him. But this is not something someone who's seeking to win a race does at this stage.
Yeah, I would expect he would be in battleground states.
You would think so.
He was in Michigan last night. Basil, we've discussed how the vice president has been trying to thread this needle as she navigates the conversation around race and how Trump has weaponized it in this election. I'm just curious, as you heard what we listened to at the top there, how do you think she handled the question specific to the conspiracy theories about Haitian migrants?
Well, let's talk about Long Island again, right? Because even though New York has only voted for Republicans 6 times since the Great Depression, 2 years ago, when Lee Zeldin, a member of Congress from Long Island, was running for governor, he talked a lot about violence connected to immigrants and migrants. He talked a lot about crime, and that really did turn out a lot of votes on Long Island. So to Susan's point, it's interesting that he's there, and I guess that it makes him feel more comfortable, but there is a policy, it is rooted in policy that's come out from a lot of the elected officials that live there that have talked about this issue of immigration and migrants and connected it to crime. And when we look at what Donald Trump has said from his mouth, and J.D. Vance has confirmed in terms of, doubling down, I should say, on his belief about what Haitian migrants are doing, all that does, in my view, is turn out votes on the other side. You're angering a community that may have been mobilized against you before, but now have a lot more reason to come out and vote against you. And this is not just the Haitian community, it's the Caribbean community, which I'm a part of. It's doubling down on this hate, and you have to ask yourself why. And I said this before on the show, why are they so fascinated with pets? Why do they keep talking about this? But clearly they think it's gonna work.
And Trump is saying he's going to visit Springfield, Ohio, the city at the center of this latest conspiracy theory. Would a visit by Trump benefit anyone?
No,
there?
it would be devastating to the town. First of all, resources-wise, I think we heard the mayor say that the town could not absorb him coming in as far as security goes because they have so many other issues. Right now, because of the horrible language being used by J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. So I think he does it like he does a publicity stunt, and it should come at no surprise. He cares not one iota about the people there and what his visit will do and inflame the situation. I heard one bit of good news about the community, though, and that was that a lot of people of every background were visiting Haitian businesses to show their support. And that's what the community is about there. They don't need the hatred coming in from Donald Trump.
Right, we heard from the mayor there say, we don't need hate, we need help.
Right.
Yeah. They do need more resources to help
and that's a
deal
legitimate
with the influx
conversation.
of people who've come to their city. Right. I have to show this Atlanta Journal-Constitution poll out of Georgia, Basil. That is obviously a very key state in this election, and it does show that it's a toss-up right now. But this is the part that stood out to me. Look at that undecided voters number on the bottom. Yeah. Black voters, 12% say they are undecided in Georgia. Does that surprise you?
Well, when I think about that and layer on top of that the NAACP poll that talked about how there were a number of African-American voters, particularly men over the age of 50, that were either undecided or maybe even leaning towards Trump, and Governor Westmore of Maryland talked about this, that there's still a lot of work to be done to talk to a lot of African-American voters about specifically what Democrats are going to do for them in a Democratic administration. And it's an age-old issue. You've got to go and talk to the voters where they are. But at the same time, when you, just as a black male, when I see someone like Donald Trump, who is remarkably unqualified, standing next to Kamala Harris, who is extraordinarily qualified to be in that position, and they're given equal weight and equal time, that says a lot to me, someone who has to work twice as hard to be in the same room, right? And the message that you send to a lot of black voters is no matter what you've done, it's still not going to be equal carry. It won't carry the same weight. And that's something that tamps down and depresses enthusiasm to go out and vote, because does your vote actually matter? And so that, I think, is what's reflected there.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is it more like enthusiasm, or is it more that they're really undecided?
A little of both, and right, and I think that's where the challenge is for Democrats, to be able to go into those communities and say, this is what's on the agenda for you. It's a specific conversation that needs to take place.
And there are so many different constituencies and voting groups that are important in this election. We talk about people of color, we talk about suburban women, and on that last point, in Michigan last night, Trump's former White House press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's the current governor of Arkansas, was along his side, and she appeared to take a swipe at the vice president for not having kids. Let's listen to this.
Not only do my kids serve as a permanent reminder of what's important, they also keep me humble. So my kids keep me humble. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris doesn't have anything keeping her humble.
And of course, she doesn't have biological kids, but she does have stepchildren. And Kirsten Emhoff, the ex-wife of second gentleman Doug Emhoff, took to Vice President Harris's defense, posting this: Kamala Harris has spent her entire career working for the people, all families. That keeps you pretty humble. Susan, why is the GOP continuing to go down this road? Doesn't it risk alienating a whole lot of women voters?
I think it does. I think it's a huge mistake that they're doing this. Sarah Huckabee Sanders should know better, given her political background. But I also think they do it to create more of she's not like us kind of attitude. And we've talked about this a lot. To really say, you know, she just doesn't come off the same way we do. She doesn't have the same values I think they're trying to throw out there, whereas Harris is putting out a whole campaign based on her values. So I think it's going to definitely have backlash against the campaign. But again, I just wonder if they're looking for that, like, little group of voters or people who have never really voted before to come out and vote under such a bad message.
Interesting. Susan Del Percio, Basil Smikle, guys, thank you. Good to see you.